It was very interesting to me to learn that on your online survey, monitoring and evaluation ranked first in terms of what people would like more information about, yet it ranked sixth in terms of importance to a program. I'm not surprised because let's start with ranking sixth in terms of a program. Monitoring and evaluation is not the very first thing you need to think about. If you don't have a good program, then having an excellent monitoring and evaluation system is not going to give you that good program. You need to have trained staff. You need to have contraceptive access. You need to have high-quality services. On the other hand, I think many people in the international family planning community believe they have an idea of how to achieve some of these others. There are less mysteries in how to train staff and how to achieve a good contraceptive logistics system. Because monitoring and evaluation is sometimes seen as research or has some quantitative aspect to it, there may be more of a sense in the field of it's being a challenge. It's not something people do through common sense. And for this reason, I'm not surprised that people in the survey did cite it as something that they wanted more information on. In terms of when I got interested in family planning, it was in the early 1970s, and I was part of the generation that responded to the urgency of the population explosion. So I went to grad school with the explicit purpose of wanting to promote family planning through mass media in developing countries. In terms of why I was drawn to monitoring and evaluation, in fact, originally I was not. I started out my career in family planning in what was then information, education, communication, and did that for a decade. During that period, began to realize, though, how important it was to have data to determine whether or not what we were doing made sense, were we reaching the right populations, was what we were doing having any effectiveness. And from that, I made a detour and ended up in evaluation. In terms of how I'd explain monitoring and evaluation to staff that didn't have a background in this area, I would say it answers some important questions without which you don't know what's really happening with your program. For example, is this program being implemented according to the plan? How are people reacting to this program? And probably most importantly, did this program achieve its objectives? Did this program make a difference in terms of changing behavior or achieving certain outcomes that one expected? In terms of the history of monitoring, evaluation, and the evolution of family planning programs, family planning was blessed with having one of the strongest monitoring and evaluation focuses of any area of development. A lot of this was because in the early days of family planning there were so many doubting toms and there was so much of a need to get information about this subject, so that there was a tremendous interest, and partially because of the demographic focus of family planning in the early days, to know, are we achieving the numbers that we need to make a difference? Over time, that has evolved into a much more routine type approach to monitoring evaluation with some standard indicators. And I would say today, it's just as family planning has become much more accepted, standardized, there are best practices that everyone focuses on. So the evaluation of family planning has, in a sense, become more routinized, but in that same sense, better. One often asks the question whether or not 10 to 15% should be allocated to monitoring evaluation. And in my own experience, that is an excellent goal if one can achieve it. Perhaps one misconception that exists is that there's one price for monitoring and evaluation, when in fact there is the Volkswagen version and there is the Mercedes-Benz version of monitoring and evaluation. I think that organizations should not say, can we afford to do M&E? They should say, where along the spectrum are we able to invest in M&E? Anyone can do even the most basic tracking of what they're doing in terms of their activities, the outputs they're getting, the service utilization data that they are obtaining. So to say we can't afford M&E, I think is missing the boat. And it's simply a question of how much you are willing to invest in M&E. It's interesting because really good programs seem to attract more funding. They then are more likely to put more money into M&E, and they end up having the best data to reflect the glory of their excellent program.